What is it like being a Jamaican in Estonia? Hi, I'm Xavier Murphy, the founder of Jamaicans.com. And today in Jamaicans to the World, I talk to Joseph Grannum, a Jamaican living in Estonia. Welcome, Joseph. How are you?
Thank you.
So let me make sure. I've heard there's different pronunciations to this. The locals pronounce it a little different than I've heard English. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm saying
Uh,
Estonia.
so in Estonian language, it's actually Esti.
Ah,
Yeah, so it's not Estonia, it's Esti. And then also you have, because of the influence of the Germans, like they were here for 700 years. So you also have Estland.
I see. All right, good to know. So, which part of Jamaica you come from?
Okay, so I am proud to say I was born at Mountain View in what is now the war-torn part that's near Jake's Road at 55. I grew up at 54, went to Rollington Town Primary, and then from there to KC and onwards. So
All
Kingston, or as you say, Kingston and Mountain View is really my bedrock.
All right. So let tell me the story of how you got to Estonia.
Okay, so first, I need to take you back 1 century.
I,
When there was a country called USSR. I went there to study. I studied in the Ukraine. I did medicine there, and while studying for the 7 years, so 1 year for language, yes, um, I was introduced to what was then the Estonian Republic, which at the time was the three Baltic states were occupied by the USSR. So that's how I found out about Estonia. So I finished medicine, worked in Jamaica. I'm now at UTech as a lecturer. And I decided to further my knowledge in understanding how best to teach anatomy. And this was related to some issues we were having both with teaching and failure rates. So I reached out in terms of reading scientific articles. I realized that Estonia had an advantage with the use of technology, especially in the digital area. And that's how I made the contact. And later I became a PhD scholar here.
okay. So it's really education and just an interest in furthering how medical things are taught that really pushed you to the
Pushed me,
country.
yes, to leave all the way from Jamaica to to the backyard of Russia and south of Finland. So that's where I'm literally now.
But but your time in you when it was the USSR, how was that? How many years were you there?
So that was 7 years. So
Wow.
it's 1 year then for the language, but it's the oh, I should share this with you. When I left for the USSR, they said at the orientation it's 1 year for the language. So I thought, you'd have time to idle, but it was really 1 month of Russian language. And the other months was repeating the equivalent of A level in Russian language in order to do the entrance exam. So they refer to it as the immersive method of teaching, which is different from the way you perceive it, just to be learning the language and then matriculating into the medical school. And it was a closed society, so that was one. You couldn't travel between cities. So picture you want to leave Kingston to go to Spanish Town, and you needed a visa, and that's how strict it
Wow.
was. Yeah, back then.
Wow. So you know Russian then?
Yes, yes, I use it as my second language here because the population is divided. Those who lived during the USSR time, they do speak Russian, the older ones, and the younger ones who are born after they regain their independence, they are more English driven. So if you go into a store and it's an older person, the chances of them responding to you asking in English, it's going to be less than if it's a younger person.
I see. So did Estonia and those people have their own language at some point, maybe way back, and it kind of merged or died
So
or
yeah, so the Russian language came after World War II with all the Eastern European countries. when first they were liberated and then they became occupied and integrated in the USSR. However, they've always had their language, and there's something that's unique about their history. As you know, Christianity seems to have driven how cultures evolved across Europe and then in the Americas. The Estonians were very suspicious of them, thinking from what they've heard that their aim is to capture the lands. And it's something that I didn't know until one day I was in one of these souvenir shops and I saw a figure that was very black. And, initially I felt offended, but then I decided to ask the vendor why. And that's when she gave the story that they had to resort to using black missionaries. So they got black Africans, Christianized them, taught them German, and then the German Lutheran movement sent them into Estonia. So that is how they became part of so they're highly Lutheran. The Orthodox came across with Russia, but they're highly Lutheran, and that's one. And then the language is highly influenced because of that by German, including some of the letters that they borrowed, because the Germans, through the Lutheran Church, eventually introduced them to the alphabet system. But the language is there, and it's one of these languages that's related to Finnish and Hungarian, even though Hungarian is a little more further apart. You can go to Finland with a basic knowledge of Estonian and understand a few of the stuff in terms of writing.
Wow, that's fascinating. Black missionaries that were there years ago. Wow.
Hundreds of years ago, yes.
Wow. There must be some stories of
yeah, and
go ahead.
Xavier, what is strange is when you visit, when they're setting up for Christmas, the children are taught that the black missionaries, not Santa Claus, will bring the presents to them, because it would appear that when those missionaries came to Estonia, they never stole the land and so on. And so in their mind, like, these guys brought Christianity, they helped us to create our alphabet. And so the images of these, and you can see for their extreme, seeing a black man for the first time. And therefore for them, it was very black, because I'm saying, we don't look that black. But then you have to understand it from their perspective and to see that it's incorporated in their culture, that is how Christianity came across. Yeah.
Wow, fascinating. I would have never thought this. So, interesting enough, the people, what are the people like in Estonia?
Okay, so you have two main ethnic groups. You have the Russian-speaking ones. Some were during the Tsarist period, they were here. And then those that came across, of course, when Stalin took over and did a lot of the deportation to Siberia. And that's how it's kind of almost like ethnic cleansing. So within the Baltics, he took most of the Latvian, Lithuanians, and Estonians and put them way in Siberia, and then put Russians. And they weren't volunteers, because I've spoken to a few of these elderly people, and they were taken as children, put on trains, and then brought into Estonia. So you have the Slavic group, that's what I refer to them as, Ukrainians, Belarusians, Russians who speak Russian. They're more, if you know the Slavs, they're more like Southern Europeans. They love to drink. They love to talk. They'll ask you 1,000,001 questions and so on. And then you have the Nordic aspect, which is the majority of the population who are Estonians. And they tend to be very reserved. And I link it to their history, where from the beginning, they don't trust a lot of foreigners. And so I think it still continues in their cultural approach, where if you hold on long enough, talking, saying hi, for example, even with students, and this continues for a few months, in some cases, more than one academic year. Once they open up and they trust you, you have a very, very good friend for life. And that's something that's unique about them. But if you're like us, which is after you try 3 or 4 times, you just say, "Cho,
right,
we can't bother." and that was my approach initially, until I decided that, okay, I need to find what the formula is. And so I'm actually now a peer tutor. So every cohort of students that come in, I give them that orientation that you're not going to break the ice easy with Estonians. They'll smile with you in class, and the minute you go in the corridor, it's like you're a stranger. So you will see them and they'll just pass you like you don't exist. The same in the shopping mall, and you're wondering, okay, did I commit an offense? Did I say something wrong? Until you find out that's how they are. Like, okay, they trust you in that small space, which is the classroom. But outside the classroom, then you will have some problem with communication. But once they break it, they'll invite you out, invite you to family dinners, to midsummer when they light the bonfire and so on. And I just say you have to give them time. So that's the
Oh
stark
boy.
difference between the Slavic groups and the Estonians.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
So when you say I am Jamaican, what are the typical responses you get?
Oh, so I'm told I'm not the typical Jamaican. The
Okay.
typical Jamaican is expected to, from time to time, sneak around the back of the building and smoke weed. And they say that's because of Bob Marley. Even one of my very good friend and associate professor said, "It's time for you. I need to open the door and ask, like, what's this scent?" And I say, "No, it's something that everyone have. That if they visit Jamaica, we're all walking around with this big spliff and smoking." So there's that. There is also athletics. They keep asking the question, for such a small nation, how are we so good? So whenever it's athletics, you'll be going down the corridor and they'll even remind you, have you seen the race? And so on. So Usain Bolt, Shelley, and so on. So we have a brand both in music, in the cultural use of weed. Even yesterday, I was speaking to a friend of mine and I was speaking about weed as in English, stuff that grow where it shouldn't. And he was saying, "Oh, so you have weed. How did you get it?" And then I paused and said, "No, no, 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 no. I know I'm a Jamaican. It's not in that context. It's those stuff that grew." And he's like, "Oh, because when you're Jamaican and we hear weed, we're thinking of." I said, "No, no, no, no." So yeah, we do have that kind of cultural. It's almost like weed. We can copyright it as, if you hear weed, it's
Jamaican.
Jamaica.
You mentioned music and reggae. Are you hearing reggae there in Estonia?
So yes, they play reggae, they play dancehall. There is this. I met him here, so he's now a friend. FEMA, and there's another Jamaican. They're based in Helsinki, and they would come across to Tallinn and to Tartu and have these dancehall jam sessions. They would teach them all the latest moves, and also
Okay.
have like jerk chicken and all those stuff. So they look forward. I remember going to one of the club events, and FEMA had to remind the Estonians that those who were dancing and holding each other, those are part of his dance troupe. Because in Estonian law, you're not permitted to touch a stranger, like in a club, because then it's an assault. So they were watching his dance troupe performing the way we would in our dance hall, and they just start imitating. And then I had to say to him, like, "Are you seeing?" And then he grabbed the mic and said, "No, no, no. If the girl before you don't know her, it's not your girlfriend, don't touch her. These are dancers." So then they realized that they were club participants. They were actually a Finnish group that works with FEMA. So we do have that. Because of
Okay.
COVID, I
Right.
think he has had only one event. But
Right.
before COVID, almost every other month he would be in Estonia with this live event that we would attend.
Nice, nice. Now you brought up something that I think is maybe a custom. So explain this to me. You said you can't touch a stranger. What's that about? Is it a custom? Is it
No, it's by law. If for example in Jamaica, you can go to a club or a street dance, you see someone, you don't know them, you say hi, the person is dancing, you just walk up to them and you start dancing and doing all this stuff, because we have both reggae and soca that's interactive. But under their law, unless you know the person, it can be considered an assault. And seeing that we are
okay?
foreigners, we
Right.
always try to make sure we walk that line, because you don't want someone to exit the club and the next thing the police enters to say, you assaulted them because you didn't know her. So he made sure he stated it. And even though we were students, he said, no, get the consent, because he doesn't want also, the next thing he's barred from coming here. So it was fun, really, to see a lot of them trying to do all the dance move, especially when it comes to the twerking.
So let me warn folks, you just heard it. You can't go just get a wine on somebody or dance on somebody,
Yeah.
you have to ask the question if you're in Estonia. So keep
Yes.
that in mind. But are there any customs that you found interesting? That maybe it's how weddings are done. Maybe it's how you greet people.
Well, let me see. In terms of their custom, I would say more it's they are very formal in greeting, like hi, hello, and
Right.
that's it. Also, in terms of the academic rank, in Jamaica where like graduation is this massive, it's something that I think they've carried over from the Soviet era. It's just formal, like handing out certificates, but they take pride in taking the pictures after. There are no gowns or anything. And I remember in several of our seminars, those of us who are of the Commonwealth diaspora, so I have two Ghanaians that I'm also doing PhD with, and we would say like, Professor Xavier, and everyone was looking like, we're not used to. I'm like, no, you in our country you don't have someone at the rank of a professor and dare just say Xavier. But that's how they are. And they even admitted that when they go abroad and they present themselves by just saying, I am Joseph, people start looking around, looking at the program like we thought it was a professor. So they always say where they're going, they have to read the protocols. So for us, that's something that is strange that they don't mind. So you can walk into a room and you don't remember if it's professor or doctor or professor emeritus and just call the first name, and it's not a problem. So
Nice.
they are very down to earth with that, which is what I like in their culture. And then in the general culture, you can just walk up, say hello. In Estonian, it's tere. And then you can ask a question. And they tend to be very friendly. But there's another side, which is they tend to be very fast in walking. So if you ask a question and you're checking your GPS, by the time you raise your head up to say, okay, is this King Street or should it be Princess Street? They're like 100 meters away. And initially, those of us who are foreigners, we would joke by saying it's maybe because it gets very cold in winter to -35. So they have practiced to walk very fast. But it's a general culture that they have. Because I've been to Finland and the Finns don't tend to walk that fast. It's just something that's unique to Estonia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about food. What's the food like? For question one. And part two to that is, if you had a food that you'd say, Xavier, try this if you come to Estonia, what would that food be?
Okay, so there is a push for the vegan movement. So there is in every restaurant or cafe there's drive for you to eat more healthier than before. So that's one. However, in terms of local food, you do have, as far as I know, this Christmas dish, which is with pork and potatoes, which is very good. They tend to have pork and chicken primarily. They have schnitzel, which for us would be like fried chicken breasts in a batter.
Okay.
Like French fry, as we call it, or
Right.
Southern fry. But they have adopted it, I think, from Germany. So it still has the name schnitzel attached to it. They have several soups, which seem to have come across with the Slavs. Silianka, which is a meat-based soup. And then there is borscht. The Ukrainians don't like when you call borscht soup. For them, it's a delicacy. So I always tell them when I go out, I say, I studied in the Ukraine and the Ukrainians don't like when you say borscht. But borscht is almost a cabbage soup with beet. And they can add lamb to it, which gives it the kind of ram goat taste, which is why I like it. So like having something next to
Spanish water.
Manish water. Yeah. They're not so good on like steamed fish and roast fish. It's more baked salmon or
Okay.
smoked fish. So
I
they love the idea of smoking fish and they don't have a problem with bones. So where you go to you're in the US where everything is filet. For
right.
them, they have the fish with the head and the bone and they just eat through. So it's something that I like about them, where it's more down to earth.
Right.
And when you go out, if they have fillet, they always say, they look at the footprint, like how much fish was wasted to get the fillet, and they will complain to the waiter. So you realize that they have this very nice way of being eco, I think, and bio friendly. in the real sense of the word, like in both in diet and how they see. In terms of the food, then you have the drink. They love a lot of beers, which reminds me of the German, so that could have been a German influence. And they do have a lot of beers from various food sources, carrots. Sometimes you just go to some of these local brewery outlets and you can try anything you want. The problem with that is that their export market is now affected, where I think Germany is saying if it's not 100% hops, you can't call it beer. You have to say like a beer drink or so on. But internally, we call it as students. We go and then you look at the list and say, I haven't tried carrot beer, beetroot beer.
Correct.
I mean, that's it, yeah. And then you have the staple, which comes from the Russians, which is vodka. And, you know, vodka, for them, vodka is not in cocktails as we are used to. It's only shots. So no matter how big the bottle is, they're going to have shots until it's empty.
Oh,
and if you try, you know, if you're like a Jamaican like me, you first you eat, then you eat fatty food, then you drink a lot of fluids, and then you do the shots, and they realize you're not drunk. They say that you're wasting the money. Because for them, going out and doing shots mean you should all be walking and staggering back to the dorm or to your apartment. So it's something I've learned from them. Each time I'd go out, they'll ask, have you eaten? They say, oh, you're spoiling the fun. You need to come and drink and, you know, almost like crawling out. But they see it as fun when they do it.
So you said, what was the pork dish? So I want to hang on to one dish. You said this pork dish in the beginning. What's the name of it?
I don't remember the name in Estonian, but it's their Christmas dish.
Okay.
So where we would have, let's say, ham, and then, of course, you know, the mix, the oxtail and the this and that. It's this pork dish that they have. And then they also have blood sausages at Christmas. Right. But the pork dish is the main one. So I'll get the name to you and also a picture of what.
Here's the thing. If anybody who is from Estonia is familiar, just put in the comments the name of that dish so that we could see it.
Yeah.
So cost of living, what is it like? How would you rate it?
Okay, so that's one of the reasons now. You might be wondering, okay, I decided to do the PhD. I could have done it in the Nordic countries or even in Germany, but why I chose here. And what I did was to look at what I would get as a stipend as part of the scholarship and the actual cost of living. So for rent and so on, it's one of the cheaper in the Eurozone. Food and clothing wise, recently it has started to go up, especially since the war started. Okay. Having visited Germany before, Germany tends to be cheaper for clothing, but the beauty about Estonia is they do have a lot of high-end shops. And once there's out of season, you can get those same clothing for little or nothing, which is how I shop, which is you want an expensive winter coat, wait until summer, go to the high-end shop, which it was like say 200-300 euros, you're going to get it up to 20 euros. If you wait until the next winter when the new stock comes in and the old stock is there, they're going to have it on a discount, but it's going to be closer to the original price. So Estonia has that advantage.
Good tip.
And and for them, it's important to note, similar to Jamaica, they go and work in the Scandinavian countries because the salary is 5 to 6 times greater than what they get here. But they live very simple when they're there. And then they come back home for holidays, you know, they have their car, their houses, and so on. So I've learned from them also that there is this economic movement. It's not only, let's say, Jamaicans leaving for the US, Germany, the UK, but they too move to another Eurozone where the salary is much higher in order to make their dream back home a reality.
I see. So in terms of, you know, when you get into the supermarket, are you seeing any of the fruits that you get in the Caribbean?
So they have mangoes imported, I think it's from Asia. You have tamarind. You have kiwi is not common to us in Jamaica because it's not really grown there, but it's also available here. You have melon, which is grown during the summer, and then out of season it comes from Southern Europe. You have bananas; they're always present. The trick that I have learned is you have to be careful of the label. So sometimes you walk in and see mangoes like are similar to like the Aden in terms of its large shape for like €4.59 a kilogram per 2 pound. And then I would say, well, I think I'll wait until I go back to Jamaica during mango season and eat because I'm not going to buy it. but then sometimes you're having friends over and you want to, like with me, to do like a fruit salad or something. So you'll
Right.
buy all the fruit so that they understand how it is in the context of Jamaica. But yes, sometimes when you're there and you're thinking of your student budget and you're looking, and my other friends will say, it might be cheaper to buy the dried mangoes, in the Ziploc pack.
And you're like, no,
And
this is
sometimes we'll buy it, and then the other time we say, no, you need the mango juice.
right.
So, and then for other local stuff, those I have friends from Mexico. So, for tamarind balls, I restock through Mexico because I don't know any Jamaicans coming this side. Because I didn't know Mexicans like it, so I would get like this big Ziploc bag, and I would laugh to say, this is how we travel as Jamaican, and yeah, we do the same.
Uh, that's funny. So you're Jamaican fix now, right? When you're ready for your Jamaican jerk chicken or something, you're cooking that, right? Or is there a little spot or someone that you can
So
lean on?
no, this is something I need to warn anyone coming to Estonia about. Whether it's an Asian restaurant, as in Chinese or Indian, or any other, when on the menu they say spicy and you see 3 peppers, it means to us as Jamaicans seasoned. So I always, whenever I go out to eat, I always have to say to them, okay, I'm eating this. And can you ask the chef to make it black people spicy or Indian spicy? And then they'll look at you and they say, but you can't eat that. And I say, yes, you can eat it because that's the way we eat. So for anything really Jamaican the way we want it, then I'll do it here at home. And then
Right.
you have to do 2 pots because the Estonians, most of them don't eat spicy food, at
Okay.
least the level at which we call normal. And sometimes this summer I haven't started yet, but I usually grow like on the windowsill Scotch bonnet pepper.
Oh,
And
nice.
yeah, and so the Africans would eat, I would eat, the Indians would eat, but not the Estonians. So normally what I do when I'm preparing, you have like one that we would just call seasoned, and
Right.
then the other one which is like Jamaican seasoned.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. So in terms of getting around the city that you're in, or I don't know
Mhm.
how large Estonia is. Would you say it's easy if I was to come or someone was to visit? Would you say rent a car, or is there an equivalent to Uber or some type of
So yeah, you
expensive
have
taxi?
several taxi companies that are app based. One was local, which is Taxify, but it got bought out with Bolt. You can rent within the city. You can go around using the city bicycle, which both mechanical and electric bicycles, as well as e-scooters. You can rent cars, which fairly cheap. There is a very good bus network. There are 2 differences related to politics. So in Tartu, you pay for the city bus, but going to the outskirts, to like if you want to go to Spanish Town or Mandeville, that bus service is free. In Tallinn, which is the capital, it's the other way around. The city government won on the ticket that they are going to make public transportation free. So within the city, it's free if you are from the city. And then going on the outskirts, it's paid. So when
Oh,
they visit us, they always complain about it. Like, why don't you have free? I said, well, for us, it's nice because if you want to go to a lake, you just jump on the blue bus. You don't have to pay anything, and you're there in Mandeville or let's say Maypen, that type, or Ochi. But
right.
then for them, it's the opposite, which is they don't pay within the city limits, but they pay for going outside.
Oh,
And
wow.
we
So
also
country
have
people.
a network.
So
Yeah.
basically, you're saying country people paying to come to town, but town people not paying to go to country.
No, for Tartu, it's the opposite. The country people have the free buses. within there. So Maypen to Mandeville, Maypen to Old Harbour, it's all free. Those
Okay.
blue buses. And the ones that come to Tartu, which is the second city, they are free. And the aim, I think, is looking as a foreigner would be to encourage people to have startups and work in startup companies, which is what Estonia is known for. Because Tallinn itself is a mega city, as is, with each area, it's almost like a city itself within Tallinn. They have made the entire bus system for people there free. And it's only free if you register. Oh, that's another thing that they have. You have to register where you live.
Okay.
So the system knows that, for example, you are from Old Harbour, so you travel free on these buses, or you're from Maypen, etc. If you go to Tallinn, however, from or say you leave to, let's say, go Mobi, the system, once you use the card for it to read, it will realize and it will take money off, or it will tell you that there is no money on it. Yeah. So some students, for the advantage, what they would do is they'll get jobs in their final year in Tallinn and then change their address in order to have that free transportation and the bigger city. Yeah.
I see. To get around. So
to get around, yes.
So you mentioned like going to the lake and whatever. If there's an event or an attraction or a place you would say, Xavier, if you visit Estonia, you gotta see this place, so you gotta go to this event. What would that be?
Okay, so from the side of the actual geography, somewhere outside of Tallinn, I think it's near Paldiski area, there is a waterfall that looks nice, especially at winter when it's frozen. So it just looks like it's just frozen in motion. And then the Ida Viruma, which is Eastern Viruma, which is primarily where the Russian-speaking area is, with Narva and so on. There they do have a lot of waterfalls that you can go and visit. So you have the waterfalls, you do have a lot of lakes. And if you are into like the beach, you can go to Parnu, which is like their equivalent of our Ocherius, which is the beach area and resort. But they do have a lot of islands also, which do have tourist spots. And for example, the largest is Saaremaa. It still has those houses, those wooden houses looking like Scandinavia. So normally when you see Norway and so on, you see these bright red and yellow. They were occupied by the Swedes for a very long time. And so the island still has that tradition in the housing and so on. So you do have different aspects of the area. The north tends to be a little on the flat side. And then as you go south towards the Latvian border or towards the Russian border, it tends to be a little hilly or like mountainous in terms of the terrain.
Okay. So,
and if you want to visit Russia but not go to Russia, then you have to go to southern Estonia. There is a part that it's when you're going into Setomaa, and the district is called Satse. You have to drive through Russia. Literally, the road crosses Russia 2 times based on this is a piece of land. And sometimes I would drive through with friends just for the fun. You can't stop, but we slow down enough that the car is still moving, and you take pictures of the sign, and you're doing your vlog to say, I am now in Russia. And then 50 meters or 100 meters later, you cross the border and you say, oh, you're back in Estonia. And then you see the sign again that you're now entering Russia. So for us also, a lot of people, have been asking, with the war, aren't you? And I say, but we have roads that cross through Russia, because when it was the Russian Empire, that's how it was. And then when the Soviet Union fell apart, I think maybe they didn't do these borders totally. Maybe they had this opinion that, everything would be more or less friendly. And so you do have roads that literally, the shortest way to get to that district is to drive through that area, which crosses Russia.
I see.
Yeah.
So, Joe, listen, thank you very much for spending some time and telling us all about Estonia, your journey there. So, winding down, here is a scenario. You land in Jamaica, get off the plane, get out the airport. What is that first thing you are doing?
Hmm. So I would fly into Mobay. I like the bigger airport. Then I would leave the airport. First thing I would do is go home or where I would be staying, maybe with relatives or friends in the Mobay area, and then head to Pork Pit.
You're getting is it jerk pork or jerk chicken? Which one you getting?
Whatever they have at the time. The jerk pork, the chicken, the barbecue ribs, the shrimp, whatever they have on the grill, I would eat. And then to cool down, my usual cool down spot, because I worked with UTech as head of the Western campus in Montego Bay, and my little hideout spot was Cafe Blue in Fontana Pharmacy, which is going towards Bogue Village. So I would go there and then drink my coffee, have my panini with smoked marlin, and then just go through my phone using the Wi-Fi. That's what I used to do before I hit Kingston or anything else. So I would go back to that routine as if I'm working in Mobay at UTech Western Campus. And then I would announce that, okay, I am on the rock, and start heading now to Kingston, where the bulk of the family is.
And key thing, you just said it, key thing. You don't announce you're coming, you show up because you know, anti this when say bring this, anti that when, and you're not packing a whole separate suitcase for things. So you just show up.
But hold on, I in Jamaica, this is what I've observed. So showing up is not the only thing. When you're leaving, the family surrounds you, and then they will say, but Joe, you really need to go back with that shirt. So in other words, you're going back with the clothes that you have on that, the little clothes rack, to say, they know that's okay, that's what you're wearing to airport. So they make sure, or they'll say, you can't leave the sneakers in until when you come back. So it's something about us.
Oh, that is funny. It's true. It's true. So here is how I typically end. How do the Estonians say goodbye in the most informal way? We will say later, or little more.
So they normally, informal way would be ciao, which seems to be spreading across the entire European continent. And then formally it would be here daiga.
Okay. So Joe, thank you very much. Listen, I've learned so much about Estonia. And folks, again, if you remember the name of that dish, please put it down here. So how do you say goodbye again now? Hayad
aiga.
Okay, let me try again. Hayad
aiga.
Hayad Aida. Hayad Aida, Joe.
Okay, Hayad aiga.
Show some love now. Hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell. That way you don't miss a video.